Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Wow, that's an incredibly intense and ridiculous situation you had to go through, OP. It's shocking how some people can jump to such extreme accusations without any basis. The fact that Karen escalated the situation to the point of calling the police and accusing you of kidnapping your own son is beyond absurd. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Karen mistakes mom for Kroger employee, accuses her of kidnapping own son. This happened 3 years ago, mid-October, when the weather was still nice where I live. I went to our local Kroger to grab a few things I needed for dinner. This is important because I wasn't using a cart, just a basket. My oldest son, who's 3.5, loves to go to the store and do anything that involves getting out of the house, so I decided to let him tag along and leave his other brother at home with Dad. Grocery trips for us are kind of like our little mom and son dates. I usually let him pick out a toy or a treat of some kind. Since outings aren't as often since the pandemic, I try to keep things normal and exciting for him. This is where story comes into play. For note, I was wearing a light blue polo, but the store dress code is a dark blue polo with the store logo in khakis. I was wearing jean shorts that in no way was too short, but definitely wouldn't be allowed for any employee of a grocery store. People involved will be me, TS, toddler son, and Karen, rude Karen. So about 20 minutes into our trip, I'd grabbed the few vegetables I needed, was just shopping around the canned goods aisle to grab some things I might need in the future. I was putting a can of something back in exchange for a larger version I didn't see at first when I hear, "Ma'am, I need your assistance right this instant." Not working there, I figured someone was just being a jerk to a nearby worker and carried on until about 30 seconds later while looking at different canned good items when Karen grabs my arm and pulls me around. Me. "Excuse me, can I help you?" Karen. "I know you heard me. Now help me find the molasses, now." Me. "I clearly don't work here, so how about no, and don't touch me again? As a matter of fact, we're in a pandemic and you're not even wearing a mask. Get away from me." Karen. "I have COPD. I can't wear one. Where's your manager? That's a violation for you to even ask about my medical condition. Now go find this child's parents instead of dilly-dallying around like you're supposed to, or else I'll tell the manager you weren't going to give this child back." Me, completely stunned and pissed at this point. For one, I didn't ask about your medical condition. I said, "Get away from me since you're above health codes. How dare you accuse me of stealing a child? Again, I don't work here, lady, and this stolen child happens to be my son. Are you okay?" Karen. "I know you're a little rotten liar who doesn't want to get in trouble. Now take me to the manager now. You're no older than 16. Who are you keeping this child from?" Me. "I'm 25 years old. He's my son. I do not work here. Get the hell away from me before I get a manager myself. You're scaring my son." TS is visibly scared and on the verge of tears at this point. Karen. "He looks scared because you stole him." Me. "So now I'm no longer finding his parents but stole him on the clock?" Karen. "See, you just admitted it. You do work here." At this point, my son is crying, so I just grab his hand and walk to find a manager as fast as I can, with Karen screaming behind me that she's getting a manager and that I'm kidnapping a child, so people are starting to look. I finally find the manager. It doesn't take much to explain the situation, as Karen was trailing behind me screaming as I was talking to him. He very quickly confirmed I did not work there, and then told her to leave for making such accusations and not adhering to local health department guidelines. She, of course, refused, started causing an even bigger scene on how we were human trafficking in the store, and the police getting called up by her. Yes, she was the one who called 911 to report a kidnapping. And she's arrested in front of a good 150 people. Basically, just had to tell the cops my situation and how she was following me throughout the store, accusing me of stealing my own son, and that was that, and went home and on with the rest of my day. So, Karen, I sincerely hope a jar of molasses was worth a trip to jail, and you receive the mental health care you clearly need. This story is a stark reminder of the unfortunate reality that some individuals are quick to make false assumptions and accusations without any regard for the impact it may have on others. I hope you and your son were able to move past this bizarre and distressing incident without any lasting repercussions. And our second story. Harass me for having white hair? Have fun covering my shifts. This happened about 2 years ago. I worked for a very popular supermarket chain in Australia. I'd been shunted there, and their sister company went belly up. Now, I love dyeing my hair crazy colors. It's a quirk. It makes me feel more confident in myself, and as someone with social anxiety, it was a great pick-me-up when I was feeling down. When I first got transferred there, I had blue dreadlocks, and we had a male manager. There was never any issues with my hair or dress standards. I took pride in my work and worked hard. About a year after, we got a new store manager. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah had very clear-cut ideas about how her store should be run and, importantly, how her employees should look. At this stage, I'd taken my dreads out and just had short purple hair. According to the employee guidelines, employees should appear professional and hygienic at all times. No mention of hair color whatsoever. However, the phrase professional is open to interpretation by management. You can see where this is going. It began as passing comments on my hair, such as, "Wow, that's bright," etc. But other employees began coloring their hair. Sarah sent out a memo that no unnatural colors were allowed. I was very sad. Colored hair was part of my identity. It gave me the confidence I needed to interact with 200-plus customers a day. I decided I would bleach my hair snow white. So I did. Now, if any of you have done this before, you would know that you need to use purple shampoo to counterbalance that brassy bleach yellow tone to keep it white. This is a fine balancing act. Don't leave the shampoo in long enough and you have yellow hair still, but too long and your hair can get tinged pastel purple. Well, on a few occasions, I left it in a little too long and my hair was the slightest shade of purple. Not even pastel, only just off a light gray color. Well, that was all Sarah needed to gun it for me, going as far as to threaten to send me home without pay. As this was going on, I'd become friendly with the bottle store next door to the supermarket, under the same parent company but a different chain of command. I would cover their staff breaks, and instead of standing around like the others do, I would face up the store and help out. Well, the manager had noticed my efforts and poached me. The best part, because they had a different chain of command and a different interpretation of the employee guidelines, I was allowed to have colored hair again. I immediately took up the offer, and the night before my first shift there, set about making my hair a freaking rainbow. I get in there, my new boss loves my hair, my customers are raving about it, asking how I got it so bright, what brand of dye, etc. Well, good old Sarah spots my beacon of a head from across the supermarket and beelines it straight for me. But I was ready for her. I printed the employee guidelines and called our HR team just to get further clarification that I was correct in my interpretation. I had customers in the store, but this didn't stop her from trying to tear into me. "Sarah, you can't have hair like that." Me. Answer the paperwork. "Actually, I can. My manager has no problem with my hair, and the guidelines say nothing about hair color." Sarah. "You're going to make my employees think that's acceptable." Me. "When your employees mention my hair, I tell them straight out that it is not allowed in your store." Sarah. "This isn't the last of it. I'm going to HR about this." My new manager later told me that Sarah had gone over her head to try to have me relocated to another store and went to her area manager and complained to him about me. She was told under no uncertain terms that my hair color is not against the rules, that she is out of line to even reprimand me in the first place, and that if she does not cease her harassment, she would have to take a permanent vacation. Epilogue. Over the next year, I would change my hair to some other crazy color combinations at least weekly. I loved the look on her face every time I walked past. My mental health has gotten so much better since leaving that toxic work environment. I feel bad for my ex-coworkers who still live under her tyranny, though. And our last story. Unraveling the scheme against the elderly home. Not necessarily an HOA, but a neighborhood association who oversaw the HOA. There's a fairly large park with homes on all sides of it except the western side of the park. There's a major road, then more houses, and a large apartment complex. Only this apartment complex isn't apartments. It's an elderly home for mentally instability patients. Basically, an old folks' home for mental patients abandoned by their families. Well, the NA and HOA's head wanted the building to turn into apartments, but since he couldn't enforce rules for strictly their building, it was enforced in our western portion of the neighborhood. Starting with all residents must register and remain active in the NA's Facebook group, or you'd be unable to participate in meetings. And they checked before every meeting. If a post hadn't been made within a week of the meeting, you were turned away. Next, you could only walk certain routes on certain sidewalks at certain times. Members of the neighborhood watch who caught you breaking these rules would come out from their homes and give you tickets. Didn't matter if you lived in the area or not. All of this was to screw with the patients. The idea was if they made it a living nightmare for the patients and the employees, they'd eventually get tired and leave. Well, it didn't work. The home changed their outdoor activity times for the patients to meet this schedule, as well as changing up what patients were allowed to do outside. Next, an anonymous tip was placed with the state that employees were beating, raping, and stealing from their patients, and that the building and company was unlicensed to do such work at the location. The state came in and did their investigation and found nothing. But the licensing stuff all came from the city, which was left for them to handle. The city did not want to get involved. They were pissed when the NA and HOA started making this a big deal. City eventually comes out, does their own inspection, but find everything's 100% kosher, including their zoning and licensing. The NA's SOL now, right? Wrong. The head of both groups had a wonderful idea. He, along with the two other members of the board, started breaking into for sale homes and stealing all the copper. Then they'd turn around and forge witness statements that it was the patients. This started a whole campaign to get the place shut down. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks before the city made their final decision, a local police officer was sitting behind the complex in question, which is right across the street from my house. He catches a glimpse of someone attempting to enter one of the homes directly behind the facility. He investigates, and guess what? He caught the head of the board and 2 other members of the association breaking into the home. They all confessed, with the head confessing to wanting to rid the neighborhood of the facility so he could buy the land and redevelop it. City sues the head of the board, and the NA is basically robbed of any sort of legal standing or understanding they had with the city. Now they're entirely powerless. It's magical. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.